The safe path is over. There was a time when the path looked clearer. Learn the rules, work hard, become competent, get hired, stay useful, be loyal, build experience, climb steadily. If you did all of that well enough, the system was supposed to reward you with security, identity, and a place in the world. For many people, this was not just a career model, it was a psychological contract. It shaped how they understood adulthood, stability, dignity, responsibility, and success. It shaped the advice parents gave their children. It shaped the school system. It shaped the resume, the interview, the promotion ladder, the office, the retirement plan, and the quiet pride of being someone others could depend on. It shaped modern life so thoroughly that most people never thought to question it. They assumed it was simply how work worked. But the safe path was never as permanent as it looked. What many people are feeling now is not random confusion. It is the friction that happens when inherited assumptions collide with a changing reality. Capable people are waking up inside a world that no longer functions according to the promises they were trained to trust. People who did everything right still find themselves laid off, underpaid, replaced, overlooked, burned out, overextended, or quietly aware that their livelihood depends on institutions that do not truly know them and are not built to protect them. They are discovering that competence does not always protect you. Loyalty is not always reciprocated. A strong resume does not guarantee security. A title does not guarantee leverage. Being valuable inside a structure is not the same thing as being safe within it. This is not just an economic shift. It is an identity crisis. When the systems that trained you stop feeling stable, you are forced to ask harder questions. What is my work actually worth? What am I without the container that has been defining me? What skills do I really have outside a job title? What happens when the institution I trusted can no longer hold me? What if the future belongs less to those who fit neatly into established structures and more to those who can organize themselves? These are not small questions. They cut to the center of modern adulthood. They force people to confront something many have spent years avoiding. Security borrowed from a system is not the same as security built from within. For generations, many people were trained to think of work as the primary structure of their lives. It told them where to be, when to wake up, what to prioritize, how to measure progress, who had authority, and what counted as success. Work became more than income. It became identity, rhythm, belonging, proof, and permission. Then the ground began to move. Globalization changed the labor market. Software changed what organizations could automate. Platforms changed how people found opportunity, sold themselves, bought things, consumed media, and compared their lives. Smartphones placed an entire economy of attention in the palm of the hand. Social media turned identity into interface. Data turned behavior into a resource. Artificial intelligence began multiplying what one person could research, write, plan, design, package, communicate, and execute. The world did not simply become faster, it became more extractive. Modern systems no longer only ask people to work, they study them. They measure what people click, watch, search, buy, fear, desire, avoid, and return to. They track attention, habits, preferences, emotional triggers, social networks, consumption patterns, and moments of vulnerability. They do this to sell more effectively, predict behavior, shape narratives, reduce uncertainty, increase engagement, influence decisions, and manage collective response. A person living in this environment is not merely an employee or consumer. They are also a data source, an attention source, a behavioral signal, a market segment, a voter, a viewer, a user, a customer, a worker, a follower, a patient, a borrower, a subscriber, a target. That is not a conspiracy. It is the operating logic of the modern economy. The systems around us are built to observe behavior because behavior is valuable. Whoever understands attention can influence markets. Whoever understands fear can sell relief. Whoever understands desire can shape demand. Whoever understands identity can build loyalty. Whoever understands collective response can manage risk. Whoever understands the crowd can move before the crowd knows it is moving. This is why so many people feel strangely exhausted even when they are not physically laboring. They are not only working jobs, they are navigating systems designed to pull at their nervous systems all day long. Notifications interrupt focus. Algorithms amplify outrage. Advertising manufactures lack. Media cycles generate urgency. Platforms turn comparison into habit. Convenience replaces competence. Entertainment becomes sedation. Consumption becomes emotional regulation. A scared, overwhelmed, distracted person is easier to sell to. A fragmented person is easier to direct. A dependent person is easier to contain. This is one of the deeper truths beneath the modern work crisis. People are not only losing faith in jobs, they are beginning to sense that much of their life has been organized around someone else's interests. Their attention has been harvested, their labor has been optimized, their fears have been monetized, their desires have been shaped, their identities have been sorted into categories that make them easier to predict and sell to. And yet, most people are too tired to study the machinery. They are trying to pay rent, buy groceries, respond to emails, manage debt, stay healthy, keep relationships from collapsing, care for children or aging parents, maintain a body under stress, keep up with technology, avoid being replaced, make sense of world events, build a future while surviving the present. When life becomes survival, sovereignty feels luxurious. But it is not luxurious, it is necessary. This book was born inside that realization. It is not a book about panic. It is not a book about worshiping technology. It is not a book about telling everyone to quit their job tomorrow and become a chaotic hustler with a laptop and a fantasy. It is not a shallow manifesto for disruption, nor is it a piece of trend-chasing content trying to surf the latest wave of artificial intelligence before the next one arrives. This book is about a deeper pattern. Whenever human beings gain a new layer of leverage, society reorganizes around it. New tools change what is possible. New possibilities change the economy. Changes in the economy reshape institutions. Institutions reshape labor. Labor reshapes identity. And identity almost always lags behind reality. That lag is where confusion lives. It is where fear lives. It is where people feel the ground moving beneath them before they have language for why. Most people experience this as personal instability, when in truth they are standing inside a civilizational transition. AI is one of those transitions. But this book is not only about AI. It is about what happens whenever humans upgrade. It is about what happens when our tools become powerful enough to challenge the structures that once organized ordinary life. It is about what happens when the old division between the company and the worker, between the specialist and the operator, between the technical person and the people person, begins to collapse. It is about what happens when one capable individual can suddenly do, build, test, package, communicate, and execute at a level that once required a larger team, more capital, more institutional permission, or far more time. That changes more than business models. It changes self-concept. Many people can feel this before they can explain it. They sense that the rules are shifting. They sense that the old scripts are thinning. They sense that waiting for permission may no longer be wise. They sense that their skills matter, but that the way they learn to think about those skills may now be too narrow. They sense that there is more available to them than there used to be, and yet they also feel overwhelmed, fragmented, and unsure how to move. That tension matters. Because the challenge of this era is not merely technical, it is emotional, psychological, financial, civic, and philosophical. It is one thing to have access to powerful tools. It is another thing entirely to become the kind of person who can use those tools well. New leverage does not automatically create freedom. Sometimes it creates more noise, more temptation, more distraction, and more fragmentation. Sometimes it amplifies confusion faster than it amplifies clarity. Sometimes it gives people the ability to produce more while never teaching them what is worth producing. Sometimes it helps them imitate competence without developing judgment. Every major expansion in human capability creates a parallel demand for inner development. If our tools become more powerful, but our thinking remains disorganized, our lives do not become sovereign. They become unstable. That is why this book is not simply about making money with AI. It is about learning how to see clearly. It is about understanding how we got here, how industrial systems shaped the employee mindset, how large institutions trained people to trade self-direction for predictability, how corporations learned to optimize for efficiency and scale, how platforms turned behavior into data, how the attention economy fragmented focus, how consumer systems learned to soothe and steer the nervous system, how globalization and shareholder pressure weakened job security, and how AI intensified the possibility that one person can now operate with unprecedented leverage. It is also about understanding why this is so difficult for so many people. Not because they are lazy, not because they lack intelligence, not because they are doomed to be left behind, but because most were trained to be useful inside someone else's design, not to become authors of their own economic life. They were trained for execution, not orientation, for compliance, not construction, for specialization without ownership, for contribution without real control, for consumption as comfort, for employment as identity, for external structure as safety. Now many of them are being asked to adapt to an era that rewards initiative, communication, flexibility, judgment, emotional regulation, market literacy, technological fluency, and the ability to turn skill into visible value. That can feel terrifying if you were never taught the language of business. It can feel unfair if you built your identity around doing everything right. It can feel exhausting if your nervous system is already overloaded by the pace, noise, and pressure of modern life. But it can also be liberating, because hidden inside this shift is an opportunity previous generations did not have in the same way. A person no longer needs to become a giant company to create meaningful economic value. They do not need to wait for a publisher to publish, a studio to produce, a corporation to employ, or a gatekeeper to validate. They can think, test, build, write, package, teach, advise, design, automate, connect, and offer value with far less friction than before. They can learn faster, move faster, create with less overhead, build a body of work, a reputation, and a business around what they know and who they are becoming. That does not mean the path is easy. It means the path is available, and availability changes everything. This book calls that possibility the one-person empire, not empire in the sense of domination, vanity, or scale for its own sake. Not empire as ego, not empire as escape from responsibility, not empire as the fantasy of becoming untouchable. Empire as structure, empire as authorship, empire as the deliberate organization of your skills, judgment, trust, systems, tools, relationships, and attention into a life that belongs more fully to you. Empire as the movement from dependency toward self-direction. Empire is the ability to turn what is inside you into something that can stand in the world. A one-person empire does not mean doing everything alone forever. It does not mean rejecting employment in every form or pretending everyone must become a founder. It does not mean becoming hyper-independent, suspicious of all institutions, or allergic to collaboration. It means learning to think like an owner even before you own much. It means understanding how value moves, how trust compounds, how offers are created, how systems support freedom, and how AI can serve as infrastructure rather than intimidation. It means becoming less fragile in a world where institutions are increasingly unstable. It means seeing that your professional skill is not trapped inside the job where you first learned to use it. It can be translated, it can be repositioned, it can be multiplied, it can become the foundation of something more sovereign. That translation is one of the central tasks of this book. Another is emotional honesty. Because many people secretly want more authorship than they admit. They want more freedom, more direct reward for their effort, more alignment between their values and their work, more ability to build something that feels like theirs. They want to stop feeling like replaceable parts inside machinery they did not design. They want to feel useful without feeling owned. They want to participate in society without being consumed by it. They want money not as vanity, but as oxygen, protection, choice, and room to breathe. But desire alone does not create movement. Desire often collides with fear. Fear of instability, fear of failure, fear of visibility, fear of not knowing enough, fear of choosing the wrong path, fear of leaving behind a known identity, even when that identity is no longer protecting you, fear of disappointing people, fear of being judged, fear of discovering that no one is coming to organize your life for you. So this book will not treat entrepreneurship as a purely mechanical subject. It is not merely a set of tactics. Entrepreneurship is personal development under economic pressure. It exposes your relationship to uncertainty, rejection, structure, responsibility, money, visibility, self-trust, and action. It asks whether you can regulate yourself when no one else is organizing your day. It asks whether you can learn to create value before you feel fully ready. It asks whether you can endure the space between who you were trained to be and who the next era is asking you to become. It asks whether you can stop outsourcing authority. That is why this book moves in two directions at once. One direction is outward: history, labor, incentives, economics, technology, attention, business, power, platforms, and AI. The other is inward: identity, discipline, fear, self-concept, emotional regulation, attention ownership, and life construction. Both matter. If you understand the external world but not yourself, you will remain inconsistent. If you understand yourself but not the systems around you, you will remain naive. Real adaptation requires both. The goal here is not to turn every person into a startup founder or public brand. The goal is more fundamental: to help capable people understand the era they are living in, reclaim the value they already possess, and develop the mindset and structure necessary to build more independent economic lives. Some individuals will freelance, some will consult, some will create products, some will teach, some will build niche service businesses, some will remain employed but think and act with far more leverage, clarity, and sovereignty. Some will use AI to become better operators inside companies. Some will use AI to finally build the thing they have been carrying quietly for years. The specific expression may vary. The deeper shift is the same: from employee to author, from role holder to operator, from consumer to creator, from borrowed structure to internal structure, from passive participation in a changing economy to conscious engagement with it. This is not a rejection of work. It is a reclamation of it. It is also a reclamation of responsibility. Because power without responsibility becomes distortion. Tools without judgment become chaos. Freedom without structure becomes drift. AI does not remove the need for human discernment. It raises the premium on it. The more powerful our tools become, the more necessary it is to become someone who can direct power wisely. That means becoming more thoughtful, not less. More disciplined, not less. More grounded, not less. More human, not less. The future will not belong only to those who can use tools. It will belong to those who can organize themselves in relationship to them. That is what this book is for. It is for the person who can feel the old world cracking but does not yet know how to stand in the new one. It is for the laid-off professional who suspects their value is larger than their last title. It is for the employee who senses they were made for more authorship than obedience. It is for the builder, the translator, the pattern recognizer, the underused operator, the quietly capable person who has spent years being useful inside other people's systems and now feels the pressure to create one of their own. It is for the person who has started to realize that the modern world does not merely ask for their work, it asks for their attention, their emotional reactions, their consumption habits, their identity, their silence, their compliance, their predictable needs, their fatigue, and their fear. It is for the person who is ready to stop being raw material. If that is you, this book will not ask you to become someone false. It will ask you to become more organized around what is already true. You already have more raw material than you think. You already have skills, instincts, experience, observations, questions, frustrations, and capacities that can be translated into value. You may not yet have the structure, you may not yet have the language, you may not yet have the confidence, you may not yet have the systems, audience, offers, habits, or money. But those can be built. That is what follows. This book will help you understand the world that trained you, the forces that destabilized it, the economy that studies you, the leverage that now exists, the fears that make freedom difficult, the principles that govern value, and the practical path toward building something more sovereign with what you already know. Because the safe path is over. But that does not mean the future is closed. It means authorship matters now. And for the people willing to learn how to carry it, that may become one of the most important openings of their lives.